Dr. Dan's Freedom Forum is on the air.
This is Dr. Dan, and this is Freedom Forum Live, streamed every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Facebook, X, YouTube, and Rumble. Tonight, can we ever really trust the government? The short answer is no. The long answer is hell no. Well, maybe in 1790, we could sort of trust the federal government, but it didn't take long for politicians to pursue personal agendas for power and self-enrichment. Sad, but unfortunately true. I guess it's human nature that creates a repetitive cycle of progressive centralization of power at the expense of we, the people. Government power is often described as a continuum between anarchy on one end and totalitarian dictatorship on the other. Our constitutional republic originally sat comfortably closer to the anarchy end, with very limited powers granted to the central government and most power left to the states and their citizens. Over time, government naturally shifts toward totalitarian dictatorships as the power to control others is an addiction to a few control freaks that they cannot detox from. Vladimir Lenin is often quoted as saying, "The way to crush the bourgeoisie is to grind them between the millstones of taxation and inflation." The modern paraphrase is, "You don't have to own land to control it. You only need to regulate it." This concept usually comes up today in discussions about zoning, environmental rules, and land use policy because it neatly captures the distinction between land ownership by title, which is de jure ownership, and land control by usage regulations, de facto control. This issue becomes very real when conservation trusts and land and cooperative land trusts make agreements with government that involve trading long-term control of land and performance obligations by the government. My guest tonight on Freedom Forum Live is Jim Buck, now a resident of the Olympic Peninsula, state of Washington. So welcome to Freedom Forum Live, Jim Buck.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dan, and thank you for inviting me tonight. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, it's wonderful to have you, and I want you to know Jim has a very impressive resume. His education, a Bachelor of Science, U.S. Military Academy, military experience, a captain, U.S. Army Field Artillery. From a professional point of view, he was a civil engineer. He has state government experience in the Washington State House of Representatives, state representative, chairman of the House Republican Organization Committee, chairman Republican Caucus, chairman of the House National Resources Committee. He served on the Transportation Appropriations, Natural Resources, Fish, Ecology and Parks, Children and Family Services, Higher Education, and Community Securities Committees. He's also the author of a book, Journey of Honor, A History of the 23rd New Jersey Infantry Regiment during the Civil War. That's something you and I can have a great discussion about. I am a Southern boy, and I believe, well, you know what I believe. Now, Jim Buck, you wrote a white paper, a short white paper that you updated in February 6th of this year, and the title is Clallam County Forest Board Lands, Preserving Trust Obligations and Economic Benefits. That is something that I need to hear about. What is going on out there in Clallam County with the Forest Service lands?
Well, Dr. Dan, It's a long story, and thankfully you've told me that I can kind of take a lot of time. So I'm going to have to give a little history lesson here. Back in the 1920s, the state realized that it was going to run out of trees. And in 1935, it put together a program where it required, and in the law that passed the legislature, it demanded that timber counties turn over their logged off land that they had gotten through tax foreclosures, and with the understanding that if we deeded the land to the state would put it into a trust, and they would reforest it, bring it back into production, and when the revenues started coming in from being able to log it again, the state would get 25% and the counties would get 50 or 75%. This worked pretty good for a few years. Clallam County, the county I live in, deeded 93,000 acres of land to the state with the understanding that eventually we were going to have that money turned back to the county for distribution to the taxing districts. And this is all set out straight in law. I mean, it's stated straight up front. The trust has been recognized in at least 4 Supreme Court cases as a binding trust. There are 21 other counties or 20 other counties that have, between the 21 of us, about 540,000 acres of land. And don't want to talk about the other 20. But for us, our 93,000 acres is worth about $2.5 billion. And we get $6 million a year back on average. That's 0.24% interest. So our trust is not performing very well. And as we got, into the 90s and the Spotted Owl Endangered Species Act wars started, we eventually came to the conclusion that we probably needed to put stream buffers along our streams so that they wouldn't be polluted by sediment, and they were quite sensitive about our salmon population up here. So I ended up drafting and passing the 1998 Salmon Recovery Bill that set up our salmon recovery program for the state. And the following year, I ended up being prime sponsor of the Forest and Fish Act, which is the only state, federal, small landowner, large landowner, and tribal agreement in the United States. And that put together our habitat conservation plan, which gives us the ability to harvest timber within regulations. Federal government agreed with us, and that took about 40% of our land out of production. That really kind of put a crimp in the income from the trust. But over the last few years, especially since 2022, there's been a move to dissolve the trust, or at least take it out of being able to produce money for schools. And the problem with that is that it's also tied up with the other taxing districts. When the county forecloses on a piece of land and there's no bidders, the land is forfeited to the county, and the county owns that land as if it was a real person. So it's not a situation where the state can take it over outright, but as Dr. Dan mentioned, through regulations, they can start to tie it up. And an example would be in 1971. Before I get into that, when the trust was formed, the state became the trustee. They determined or decided to appoint the Department of Natural Resources as the trust administrator. And our county junior taxing districts have lost confidence in the ability of the trust administrator to prudently manage our land to the exclusion of all other interests, no matter how laudable. And that quote right there is directly out of the Skamania case, and it's quoted in the Chuckanut case and CNW Northwest and numerous attorney general's opinions. So as we get into this, the 2022 movement after the Conservation Northwest case claimed that they wanted to go ahead. They came up with a six-part program for divesting the school lands from the trust. So the problem with that is that all of the taxing districts are beneficiaries of the trust, not just the schools. So that means that if you're going to go ahead and divest the trust, or at least make it as unproductive, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take money away from the schools, but then you're also going to take money away from your fire department. We have 7 volunteer fire districts up here. You're going to take it away from your county roads department, your county department, your libraries. You're going to take it away from your port district, and you're going to take it away from your pool and your hospital districts. So the thing that comes down to that is, first of all, that hurts every one of those institutions. But every one of those institutions has employees. And every one of those employees gets a paycheck, and they go buy stuff from other people in the county. So the ripple effect is, if you're going to hurt your hospital district, you're going to hurt your hospital and district employees, and you're also going to hurt the people they buy services from. So it goes a little bit deeper than that even. The official statement of the Clallam County Democrat Party is that they like these Conservation Northwest legacy forest people, and they are part of their allies. So it's interesting that you have the party that's supposed to be taking care of the working man and the union man is not only cutting the funds that come in to pay their salaries, but it's also taking away the stuff that would go ahead and help them be able to have a productive life. So this is interesting because that 6-part plan became part of a campaign promise that the current Commissioner of Public Lands made during the election last year. And he has implemented that by pausing 24 different timber sales across the state. He did that for 9 months last year. And there's only been very few timber sales have been put back up this year. We had 8 missing from Clallam. I think 1 is back on. And that across the state accounted for about $40 million. Of that $40 million, about $13 million of it was to go back to the state, to this lands commissioner's Department of Natural Resources, to keep the doors open. And it was announced this morning that they have 1 month's worth of money left in their account because they didn't cut any trees last year. So this is now becoming a situation of, the government probably pretty much do anything they want. Although I think if we went to court, really fought this out over the trust obligations that were promised in the 1936 law, we could probably win. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of time, and there's going to be hard feelings beyond anything that most of us have experienced for a while. So other than that, Dr. Dan, I don't have any bad news.
Well, that sounds like a lot of bad news, but I have a question. Why am I surprised? I'm not surprised, because government is really adept at mismanaging almost anything that it touches. And here's what you've outlined is a really good example of a perfectly reasonable deal set up in 1936, which worked for a while. And then you got a bunch of incompetents in there, or worse, thieves in there, who had other ideas about how to get this money and keep it for the government, and really to regulate you off your ability to get the money owed to you, owed to your county from timber sales. Timber sales are a big deal. We have the same problems here in North Carolina. To be honest with you, of course, we have PILT here, the payment in lieu of taxes. Our county, Cherokee County, North Carolina, about a little over 30% of the land is owned by the Forest Service. And they're supposed to allow timber harvesting and timber sales in order to spend or give us money for schools and things like that. Well, what they do continually is they don't do the timber harvesting that they're supposed to do. And so the amount that we get for the schools, we do get some because they'd have to do something, but it's probably not as much as we should be entitled to. A good example of that is for many years we had a number of sawmills in the county. Uh, about 3, 4 years ago, the very last sawmill in the county closed down for lack of timber. And that's a sign that the harvesting of timber that used to be a staple of life and of income for families here, the logging families, that income is gone, as well as the money that's supposed to be coming back to us for our schools. So our story is not really much different than yours. We don't have a specific land trust like you do, but it comes back to the same thing. When you're dealing with government bureaucracy, they do what they want, and it's very, very difficult to get your rights back again. Isn't that not true, Jim?
That's true. Now, you guys, your county is probably even better off than our, because 46% of our county is in federal lands. That's Olympic National Park or Olympic National Forest. Another 14% is in state lands. Only 1% is in county, and 39% is privately owned. When I did I do a lot of work with emergency management, and basically 9% of the county makes up where the population lives. The rest of it's either national park or timberland. So when people start talking about not doing timber harvest, it puts us in the same boat that you are. We still have two or three mills open up here, but a lot of the wood that they're cutting or that they're milling is either coming from Canada or overseas, which is ridiculous. We have the best place in the world for growing trees here. Tens of inches of rain a year, moderate climate. When you guys think it's hot, or what you guys think is normal is extremely hot up here. I mean, when it gets to be 80 degrees, we go to the basement. So, as you go through this, the county trust land that we have is productive. And when you have a timber sale, it's not just a question of the money gets back to the junior taxing districts. It's the guys that are cutting down the trees, driving log trucks, running the sawmill, bringing out the fuel, fixing the equipment. They all get paid. And when you pause something for 9 months, it gets hungry and it gets unhappy. And those guys, when they don't have a paycheck to pay or to go buy stuff with, they can't put their grocery bills off for 9 months. So this becomes a problem as far as the economy is concerned too. So I already went back through the idea of how the taxes and stuff are distributed, but when you cut timber out here, 5% of the cutting is timber excise tax. So 4% of that comes back to the county to be able to distribute it the same way we just talked about. 1% goes to the state. That's all well and good as long as you're cutting trees down. But if you're not, and you have the various conservation outfits up here that first of all, they want to save the salmon, and I was in on that, and I helped. I think we did a responsible compromise that the federal government blessed, and tribes. The only people that didn't like it was the environmental community, and the environmental community has spent years trying to figure out how to get around it. And now we're dealing with climate change. We're dealing with saving old growth. We're dealing with spotted owls and marbled murrelets. And basically, if we came up with an ideal solution, it wouldn't be enough because we couldn't give them so much they wouldn't ask for more.
So basically, what do you see as a reasonable solution to your problem? What is it you're going to do to get back to where you're supposed to be? Because all the problems that you're talking about affect real people like you and me, people who need to earn a living, need to put food on the table. All of this entire thing, it really negatively affects the people to whom you're all responsible. So what are you going to do about that?
I don't know that if there's anything that I can personally do about it other than do what we're doing right now. Talk about it. I've spent 2 years researching this issue. I've gone all the way back to the individual newspaper articles that were printed on the day that the deeds were signed. I have dissected timber and property rights legislation from statehood to last week. And I'm continuing to work on, helping my county junior taxing districts get educated. And we've done a reasonably decent job of getting some legislators educated too. I was kind of taken back last year when I was talking to some representatives and senators, and they didn't realize that this land was not owned by the state. They didn't realize that this was trust land. So what I think the ideal solution is we go back to court. I don't see this happening through an agreement or through legislation because it's too politically charged with the environmental community and the amount of money they plow into elections. But I think that the only way we get through this is to go to court and have the terms of the trust and the trust relationship between the county and the state reinforced and put back to the agreement that it was at the time that we signed it.
Well, that seems to me to be a very reasonable solution, but who are you going to get to pay for that?
Well, we're working on that. It would be nice to have some outfit, a legal foundation or something, pick up the case and put an interest in it. Right now, I think we're waiting for a slam dunk cause of action, and I think that may be coming to pass given the idea that we didn't cut any trees last year, so somebody else is going to have to taxpayers are going to have to pay the bill to keep the doors open. And ultimately, the thing that comes back is, for me personally, I work with my local fire department. It's a volunteer fire department. I cut the grass for them. I probably saved them in the last 15 years. Probably saved them $90,000. But they have a lot of grass, by the way. So it's really personal to me when somebody comes in and says, "Well, if we're gonna demonstrate to keep you from cutting the trees on the Doc Holiday sale," and I'm going, "Okay, well, how much is that going to cost my fire department? And it was $400,000. And okay, how much is that going to cost my school district? That was close to $1 million. Okay, so let me think about this for a minute. I live in a community of 3,500 people. Where the hell are we going to get $1.5 million to make up for this?
So I get the picture. And so is this a county issue? Is your county the supposed beneficiary of those funds?
Yes, the county is legally, well, the beneficiaries officially are the taxing districts in which the timber was harvested during the year that the harvest occurred. So if you have a timber harvest in my part of the county, the school district and the fire district get, what their share is. And then county roads gets it, county gets it, library, pool, port, and one hospital. So that means that each person in one of those districts has to dip into their pocket and pay whatever their part of the thing is. If you live in Port Angeles, you'll have to pay for the hospital and the pool. If you live out here, you get to pay for all of it. So we have the most timber acreage in the trust. So, our ox is the one that gets gored the most. But this affects every other county that does have timber in the trust. Wahkiakum County doesn't have enough land to be able to get a whole bunch of money out of it. And they need money for a new school, and they can't get it. And Skamania County has virtually no private property. You think you're in trouble with PILT. These guys definitely lost all their sawmills already. So, I think I'm going back to the deal of how are we going to get this fixed is I don't see somebody from King County, Seattle, Pierce County, down around Vancouver, around Portland. They don't care what happens out here to us. They want to feel good about saving the earth or whatever else their cause is. And, frankly, I want an ambulance when I'm sick. I want a fire truck when we have a fire. I want to be able to go to a library or pool. I want my roads maintained. And that was the deal we made. That's the deal I expect to be carried out.
Well, so to me, I think your point of attack should be the county government. I'm assuming that you have a county commission of some kind, county government. They're probably the umbrella over all the communities, and they probably technically have a lot to say over what is happening. And I think your point of action has to be to appear at county commission meetings with many people holding signs, write some letters to the editor in the paper if you have a paper, have people parading around with signs when you're having a commission meeting. And the point of all of that is you expect your government, the county government, the government of your county, of the citizens that are being harmed by this, you expect your county government to take up your cause and get it fixed. They're the ones who should be doing it, and they have to be spurred on to do it. And the way to do that is to be in their face, to let them know that there's this problem and you're not happy about it, and you expect them to fix it. And that has to be a constant barrage. Articles to the paper, signs, get billboards if you have to, speak at schools, at churches, at wherever. You have to get people riled up about this so they understand that their pocketbook is what's being affected by their lack of compliance with this agreement from 1936. So your job is to say, look, every time you go to the grocery store and you don't have enough to pay what you want, it's because this agreement is not being upheld and you want your county commission to do what it has to do. That's what I would do. I would make it a publication. I think that of the all of the optics of the situation are in your favor because people are being shortchanged. They're not getting what is due them. And your county government is the one that should be fixing it.
Well, we have some action in that direction. I think you'll be interested in hearing what we've done. The county formed a group called the Revenue Advisory Committee, the RAC Committee. And each junior taxing district in the county has 2 members on the committee. And they've been meeting now for 2 years. 2 county commissioners are on it. And they are very aware, and they are especially more aware because of some of the research that I've done about what the impact of this has been. Until the timber pause, it probably wasn't a big deal. I mean, people were just indifferent. But when they started to demonstrate and knock off a timber sale here, a timber sale there, and then they paused stuff for 9 months, we got a hospital district that's $10 million in debt. You know, we have a couple of fire districts. We are in a severe earthquake zone. We are expecting a 9.0 earthquake similar to what they had in Japan sometime in the next 50 years. And our firehouses are not necessarily reinforced masonry. They're unreinforced masonry. We need new firehouses. And so what I've been doing started out by August of last year. The pause was only supposed to be 6 months, and it ended up being more like 10. And as far as Clallam County is concerned, it might as well still be on because there's 7 of the sales haven't been set yet. So I got together and I found some information, and I was able to come up and detail how much each junior taxing district was going to lose from each timber sale. And I learned a few things when I was in the legislature and since then, and I have been able to, I have some skills. And I put together a flyer for the county fair in 48 hours with some outside help from some organizations in the state that I'm going to keep quiet about. And we carpet bombed the county fair with a pamphlet detailing how much each taxing district in the county was going to lose if these sales didn't go through. And I followed up with that a couple of weeks later. I bought a 3/4 page ad in the paper and put that out. And once that started happening, people started waking up. But I don't think it really dawned on anybody until maybe 6 weeks ago how serious this was, until they actually figured out that the party that they put in power to administer this government was behind the outfit that is keeping the money from flowing and the jobs from happening. And that's one of the things that I think is going to really make a difference in the next 2 or 3 months. There is an effort underway that I don't know if it's actually going to happen or not, but some of the taxing districts in the county are on the verge of letting the governor know that we have lost confidence in the trust administrator's ability to administer the trust. And in light of the announcement today that they're damn near broke, I imagine that probably will receive some interest. This is after we went ahead and notified the state auditor in September that this was going to happen, and they said they didn't really want to talk about it until their next audit. So, sounds like your Cherokee County sounds like a lot like us.
Well, we definitely have issues with the Forest Service. They're, as far as I'm concerned, they're not good partners. It goes back many years. We have a TVA dam in our county. The TVA dam was erected in the 1930s, and almost 300 families. This was a county that goes back, of course, way back to the Revolutionary War era, and it was all family farms. That's all we had here was family farms. That family farm was, of course, the inheritance and the birthright of that family, because that land and farm was passed down from generation to generation. Their ancestors were buried on their farms. They earned their living on those farms. And as I said, everything was passed down from generation to generation. Well, the TVA comes and they're going to build a dam. And I understand the dam was important. And I don't dispute the need for the dam because the dam created electricity in a place here where we had none at all. So it was very important. And under eminent domain, they took land for the lake that the dam would form. That to me is perfectly fine. That is not an issue in my mind. Those families, unfortunately, they did have to lose their land. But and they were, by the way, they were paid very poorly for it. A lot of them who lost everything because of that. Uh, it was really an ugly situation. But that had to be done in order for there to be a dam and for there to be electricity here. The problem is the TVA took far more land than it needed. Whether it knew that or not, no one really can say. And I don't have evidence one way or the other. But they took a ton of land that they did not need. The fair thing to have done when that dam was finished and the lake was filled, they should have offered that land back to the people they took it from, but they didn't. They
Yeah,
gave
the
it
same thing happened out here.
they gave it to the Forest Service who locked it up. And so now we have a lake with that is completely surrounded by Forest Service land with all kinds of rules and regulations. The only really community on it is when they built the dam, they built a housing community for the workers of the dam. That is still there. And that community has a marina and homes and things like that. But other than that, there's really nothing. We have been trying now for the last 8 years to get the Forest Service to give us a campground on that lake, and it has yet to occur. There is a campground there. It was built, and then they closed it off because they didn't want to pay for it. And that's our deal with the Forest Service. It's not a happy thing. They they have not been good to the people of our county.
We don't have much going on with the Forest Service. They own a lot of land, and there's a lot of trees on it that are not being cut. But our problem more recently is similar to yours. In 1971, the legislature decided that this trust land could be used as public land as long as the uses didn't interfere with the trust, the operations of the trust. And if the uses did interfere with the operations of the trust had to be reimbursed for them. That has been questionable. I'm being very diplomatic here, Dr. Dan. The situation right now is that legislation allowed them to set up a network of trails. And we don't know if the trails rights of way have been reimbursed to the trust or not. And all of a sudden, the people that use the trails want buffer strips, and they don't want clear cuts anywhere near them because it would interfere with their view and their enjoyment. And to me, this is totally outside of what the terms of the trust were. The terms of the trust was, we're going to reforest this land, bring it back in production. We're going to harvest the trees. And by the way, the statute specifically says the land will be logged.
Mm.
And we're going to harvest the trees, and we're going to split the proceeds with you. Since that time, there has been legislation that says, well, gee, if we have to, we have a whole lot of checkerboard land plots here. If we could figure out a way to combine them, it would make managing the trust much easier. So how about if we can do transfers to go ahead and do that? Okay, that sounds reasonable. I think that would benefit the trust. And then all of a sudden it's, well, gee, we might have an endangered plant here, or we might have, an ecosystem that's unusual, not necessarily endangered, but it's unusual in the state there. And how about if we go ahead and we'll transfer those lands too? Well, it's like, okay, are you going to pay us for them? Well, kind of. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to buy private land, and then we'll give it, we'll put it into the trust, and then we'll take the land that we don't want to have logged, and we'll put that into some type of preserve. And it's okay. So let me get this straight. We're going to have 100 acres of merchantable trees that are going to provide jobs and tax income and products for mills and useful things for people to make and build stuff with. And we're going to go ahead and not harvest that and not get any of the money. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to a landowner who has 100 acres of trees that are growing and merchantable, and he's going to cut them down and give the state and the county 5% of the proceeds, and then replant it. And we're going to use taxpayer money to buy that land, and we can go ahead and log that, and then we're going to take the other land and we're not going to do anything with it. So not only is the taxpayer getting screwed out of not getting the funds for the land that he was promised to get funds for, he gets charged to pay for lands that were going to produce more money for him, and maybe get to harvest that the next time if somebody hasn't come up with another excuse for setting it aside.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it sounds to me like you need a very good team of lawyers, and you need them now, and you need to turn them loose.
Well, hopefully there's some of them listening to you tonight, Dr. Dan.
Well, I'm hoping, because that's what you need. You really do. You've got a legal issue that should be defendable. You certainly have court cases already that back it up. And you have a legal trust that was set up in 1936. And that was all ratified by additional court cases. So it's hard for me to understand why you shouldn't be able to get matters put right. But I think it's going to end up in the legal sphere. I don't see any other way that's going to happen for you.
Well, we need a well, what's the term? You got a plaintiff, and he has to have standing in the case, and he's got to have a reasonable case. And I think we've got all of that. It's just a question of whether we can find the leadership in Clallam County and to go ahead and do it. Now, most of my research has been specifically about Clallam County because we have the most stuff, or the most land. Now, there are other counties that have, I think there's 4 other counties that have upwards of 40,000 acres each. And, they are also in the same boat. So this is, I like the ability to just have Clallam County be the general plaintiff with the junior taxing districts involved. and then have people file an amicus from other counties. But I don't think it's a good deal to have all of the counties going after the state at the same time, because King County could care less. Thurston County wants to give theirs away. Jefferson County is in the process of not necessarily being all that excited about keeping their land. And the voters just don't understand what's going on. That's why I'm working as hard as I am to try to get this word out.
Well, I think that's what you certainly have to do. And your county, if you feel the general sentiment of the county is with you, that's where I would be doing the work. Washington's an interesting state. I know that the western part of the state is quite different from the eastern part of the state. I have some relatives in both sides, and I don't think they talk very much. So I think if Clallam County is with you, I would go ahead and find a way to get the county to get a law firm and go after what rightfully belongs to the citizens of your county. That's what I would do.
That's what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build the support to do that, and I think the more people. Well, each of the junior taxing districts has a reach to taxpayers. So when you start hearing from your school board that says, "Hey, we got a problem with money," and then the fire district says, "Well, we're just around the corner from the school and we got the same problem," and the county says, we're going to have to cut a bunch of employees because we can't make our budget. Sooner or later, it's going to dawn on somebody that there is a way to fix this, and that's to harvest resources that are renewable.
Every time the county cuts a service, it should be screamed about. It should be announced. It cannot just sit there unnoticed for you. Someone has to be absolutely looking at that every single time that county sits down and meets. That's the way you've got to do that. But if you are losing firefighters, if you cannot fund your teachers, the people of the county are going to have to hear about that. They're going to know that pain, and they will then be even more aggressively in your favor.
One of my friends suggested putting up a billboard that says "Save trees, not teachers." And the thing I don't understand is that the union members that are always clamoring for us to pass levies and do it for the kids and support the rest of it, is the people they have been contributing to put into office are the guys that are letting this happen.
Well, it all comes down to an individual person's economy. That's what it comes down to, especially in a smaller county like yours and a county like mine. What happens to your ability to have money in your pocket to pay for your needs? That is what's most important to most voters and most people. And if you cannot get the services without raising taxes, that's going to be the thing that's going to push them even further into your corner and get them activated.
That's exactly the message we're trying to figure out how to craft. It says so far the other side has been successful in, it's about trees and it's about this poor bird, or it's about habitat or the ecosystem or global warming or climate change or whatever the rest of it is okay. You have a point. I understand where you're coming from, but there's a limit to how much I'm willing to give away for global to meet those things. And that limit does not include giving away fire trucks, police cars, snowplows, and stuff like that. And the thing that's really amazing is most of the people that are opposing our timber harvest out here don't live here.
Right. That's always That's always a problem if you have a vacationing type of, if you have people who are there as vacationers, not as taxpayers.
Well, we have a very good. Uh, it's a beautiful peninsula. Tourism is an important part of the economy, but it's seasonal. It generally does not pay a livable wage. Doesn't pay a family wage, and basically you just can't turn off your appetite for 6 months every year.
Right. Well, that's the message. The message is when it hurts individual people in the pocketbook, that's when it counts for you. That's the message. In any way you can get that message out. Like I said, every time one EMS person has to be let go, every time one teacher has to be let go because they don't have the money, that's when someone's got to start screaming at the county commission.
We are doing our best to make that happen, Dr. Dan, and somehow or other, I think we're going to reach a turning point within the next month.
Well, I congratulate you on that, Jim. Uh, this has been a really great discussion because you're talking about what really counts in a constitutional republic, and that is local government. What you and your friends and your family and your community does to make the lives better for everyone locally. That's where the government needs to be exercised. That's where the power against bad government needs to be exercised most strenuously. And I think you're doing that. So you're to be congratulated.
Thank you, sir. That's nice of you to say.
Well, Jim, this has been a great discussion. You want to have a final commentary?
For a final commentary, I guess the biggest thing I would have to say is thank you, Dr. Dan, for inviting me on. This was an unexpected opportunity to go ahead and get the word out. Hopefully, lots of people will hear this. Hopefully, somehow or other, some of my friends will figure out how to download the podcast and play it all over Washington, play it all over Clallam County about 85 times.
Well, the only big problem is your face isn't on it. Only my face is on it because of our technical difficulties at the beginning. But the words are what is important. I will tell you that you will get a copy of this. The audio is certainly available as well as the video to you, and you can chop it up, use it however you want. And we will be chopping it up and using it both in entirety and in pieces, because this is a very, very important issue. It is just not right for big government and bureaucrats to screw over the people. It is not right. And in your case, you have an agreement, a legal agreement that says they can't do what they're doing. To me, that means that it's time to start using whatever legal tools you can to get back what's rightfully belongs to you and your fellow citizens. So, Jim Buck, thank you so very, very much for being a guest on Freedom Forum Live.
Thanks again, Dr. Dan. Keep it going.
Absolutely. And you too.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.